Hello, my friends. It's Thursday, December 25th, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee. And welcome to the Radical Russ Show, your weekday morning wake and bake, coming to you from Rolla J Studios in Southern Oregon. On today's smoke session, it's Christmas morning. Merry Christmas to all of you out there who happen to tune into a podcast on Christmas morning. What the hell is wrong with you? Go spend time with your family. Yeah, there's my family out there, the puppies. They're all fighting right now. Well, yes, it is Merry Christmas, and once again, I find myself all alone on Christmas morning. Wah, wah, poor me. But it's actually kind of a Christmas tradition. This has happened so much in my lifetime. When I was married for 15 years and lived in Portland, Oregon. And during that time, both my ex-wife and I would often go back to Idaho to visit our families. But then she had this family of she was fifth of 15 kids, right? So she had this big, huge family. And she'd want to go see all of her big, huge family. Then my family also lived in Idaho, but hers were in Boise and mine were in Nampa, and those two towns about 22 miles apart. And I know we did a few Christmases where we went to both families' house, but it eventually ended up being where I would just go to my family's house and she would go to her family's house. And I guess that should have been kind of a shot across the bow early on in the marriage to let me know it wasn't going to last for the rest of my life. But yeah, I found myself spending a lot of Christmases where I was just myself with my family. And then after the divorce, I spent a few Christmases by myself. My lady love also has a big family. She's got all her kids and grandkids that she would visit in Southern Oregon while we were up in Portland, so I'd spend those Christmases alone. And then this Christmas, the last couple of holidays, she's had to deal with deaths in the family that she's had to go deal with. And this Christmas is no different. We told you the story a couple days ago of Lila Lynn. Her was soon to be 4 months away from being her sixth great-grandchild, who was killed by negligence, really, by the negligence of Banner Lassen Hospital. And I want to give you an update on all of that. We have roped in one of my really, really close friends, Sarah Frank. She's a activist that I met in the fight for marijuana legalization, and she was a cannabis activist, quite strong one. In fact, she put on the Boise Hemp Fest. Has been. I think she's back to doing it as well. The Boise Hemp Fest is one of the few hemp fests still running, actually, because every place else that had a hemp fest is already legalized. Idaho's still fighting that battle. But then she kind of transitioned from being a marijuana activist to being a family law activist, because there were so many cases where she would be dealing with these young mothers who would get their kids taken away because they were using medical marijuana in the state of Oregon, where it's perfectly legal. In fact, the last story that I wrote for the print edition of High Times magazine had to do with the case of a woman in eastern Oregon who was having her kids taken away from her because she and her boyfriend at the time were harvesting their medical marijuana crop, and CPS got involved for some sort of complaint. I don't remember who made the complaint, but CPS got involved, and they were saying it was a dangerous environment from the kids because there was all these chemicals and grow things that were around. And it was an amazing case. You can check out the article in High Times. I think I've still got it up on my radicalruss.com website, where basically she was able to prove, with Sarah's help in court, was able to prove that none of the substances that the kids were around were actually dangerous in any way. There were some fertilizers and some nutrients and things like that, but nothing that was toxic or harmful or not properly capped or locked. So she won the case. It was a very wonderful time. And if I remember correctly, it was also around Christmas time. I remember it was kind of in the winter. It was really cold back then. Anyway, we've roped Sarah Frank into this case for justice for Lila Lynn, so we are currently investigating the personal injury attorneys in the Susanville, California area. We've got information on California law with respect to medical malpractice by doctors, medical malpractice by hospitals, the California boards, the medical boards, the hospital boards, their complaint forms. I mean, we are ready to go. So they are definitely going to hear from us at the Banner Lassen Hospital to make sure that nobody else has to go through what my step-granddaughter had to go through in losing her child over the Christmas holidays. So my lady love is down there helping out her granddaughter and her boyfriend deal with their unimaginable loss down there. And I hope they're all doing well tonight. And I'm thinking of them. And don't worry about me. I've got my 4 chihuahuas and my kitty cat and all my fish to take care of. Plus my bass. I'm going to do some more of my bass play-alongs. I mentioned this a while back on the podcast. I've been picking up my bass again and taken to the internet and recording what I call bass play-alongs. I take some of these popular songs, I electronically take the bass part out, and then I play bass to it along to the sheet music. Well, it's not the sheet music, it's actually the tablature, which is a type of sheet music reading for guitar players. It lets you know where the frets are and all that kind of stuff. So if you're an aspiring bass player and you'd like, kind of have a lesson, that's out there. If you just like listening to me play, it's out there as well. So check that out there up on my Radical Russ YouTube page, youtube.com/Radical Russ. But I'm not the only person out there this morning who has a Christmas message. Of course, we do have a Christmas message from our convicted felon-in-chief, the Tangerine Toddler, Needy Amin, had to release his Christmas message, and it went exactly as you'd expect. Let me quote from Donald J. Trump's Truth Social blog. Merry Christmas to all, including the radical left scum that is doing everything possible to destroy our country, but are failing badly. We no longer have open borders, men and women's sports, transgender for everyone, or weak law enforcement. What we do have is a record stock market and 401ks, lowest crime numbers in decades, no inflation, and yesterday, a 4.3 GDP, 2 points better than expected. Tariffs have given us trillions of dollars in growth and prosperity, and the strongest national security we have ever had. We are respected again, perhaps like never before. God bless America, President DJT. Merry Christmas to all, including the radical left scum. Well, thank you, sir. As a proud member of the radical left scum, I appreciate the Christmas messages. It's always interesting to me when he does one of these things. Happy Easter, Merry Christmas, Happy Flag Day to everybody, including, and then he goes and shits all over whoever he wants to shit all over. And it's fascinating to me how he does so, because he points out these things that he thinks must be selling points for his administration. No longer have open borders. Well, there's some truth to that. Border crossings are at an all-time low because, the governor of Texas put up razor wire to kill and drown people in the Rio Grande River, and when they do get here, President Trump has assigned ICE agents to terrorize them and ram their cars and shoot at them and take them into custody into filthy, squalid, disgusting conditions where at least 30 people have already died in ICE custody. So, yeah, sure, if you go and kill people, put them in terrible conditions, separate them from their kids, terrorize them, of course fewer of them are going to come here. But the question is that the kind of country we want to be? We've got to have immigrants. We've got to have new blood in this country. And it's not like I'm seeing the Trump administration going after these meat packing plants and big agribusinesses and construction firms and finding a few of the CEOs from those companies that have been hiring illegal workers for year after year after year, taking those guys and perp walking them and throwing them into some kind of cell. If you were really serious about ending the influx of foreign labor into the United States, you wouldn't go after the supply side of it. You'd go after the demand side of it. But that might mean arresting some white people. That might mean arresting some good Christian businessmen. Lord knows we can't have that. So we continue to go after the least of us, the people fleeing autocracies and despotism and civil war and famines and terrible violence. Mothers, fathers taking their kids who have only the choice of joining the gang or being killed, fleeing to the United States of America, where we prided ourselves on bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's what has always made America great, is that everyone could aspire to be an American. And now we want to turn these people away. We want to demonize them. And it hurts me so deeply, because when I grew up, in grade school, in 5th grade, I went to a bilingual school. We lived on the north side of Nampa, poor side of town, near the airport. And the school I went to was probably 75% Mexican-American, Guatemalan-American, Honduran-American, Hispanic-American, Brown-American. I don't care how you want to describe it, but I went to a school where most of the kids spoke Spanish. And Spanish was taught alongside English. And I used to speak a lot better Spanish than I do, just from osmosis. And my friends, the kids that I played with, were first-generation Americans, kids born on American soil that Donald Trump wants to take their citizenship away. Donald Trump doesn't think that the 15th Amendment's guarantee of birthright citizenship means anything, which shouldn't be surprised. He doesn't think the 14th Amendment, Section 3, barring him from serving as an insurrectionist, means anything. He doesn't seem to think the Emoluments Clause means anything, or the various clauses on the power of the purse for the Congress. He doesn't give a shit about our Constitution. And to continually demonize these immigrants, these people who are the least among us, who are doing the hardest jobs, is going to be the downfall of the United States of America. I don't know how we're going to recover from this internationally. I don't know how we ever regain our status as the shining city on the hill, because, elect Trump once, shame on you. Elect Trump twice, shame on me. I don't know how to exactly phrase that, but how are they ever going to trust us again? The world could look at us electing Trump one time and go, oh, okay, things got crazy. He had a populist show up, and then he got into office and wrecked your systems and flouted your laws and committed insurrections and was impeached twice. So, okay, you all learned your lesson and went and elected Joe Biden, a sensible, honest, patrician, long-time serving, serious senator person. Okay, you're all over it, America. And what? You did it again? You lived through Trump 4 years. You saw everything he did, from the hamburgers in the Oval Office for the basketball and football teams, from the staring at the eclipse, to completely mismanaging COVID, to trying to strong-arm Ukraine. You lived through an entire term of this guy, all the way to the point where he commits an insurrection and tries to have his vice president killed. And you elect this guy again? The whole rest of the world has to be completely out on the United States. How could they ever possibly trust us again? I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to happen. And to me, it says that if we, in the next administration, in the next, couple of terms of a presidency, aren't seen to be making major changes in how this country operates, major changes to our electoral systems, to our judicial systems, major structural change to guarantee something like this can't ever happen again, then they'll have no reason to ever trust us. And I think for the rest of my life, the United States is going to have to settle into being the England of the 21st century. With the idea, the metaphor here being that, England was the global dominant superpower of the 19th century. The sun never set on the British Empire until World War II, and India gained its independence. All these other places gained their independence, and finally, after World War II, England was no longer a global superpower. England was just a first world country, just your regular old democracy, but not a major superpower. And that's where we're going to fade to. We're going to fade into being just a first world country, because they're going to set up all sorts of other alliances. Europe is going to set up other alliances. Japan, South Korea, they're going to find other sources, other ways to get by, maybe working closer with China. We're already seeing China establish its dominance in Africa, built with its Belt and Road program, building and creating civilization as they go, and having all sorts of thankful folks glad to see solar panels being put up, glad to see wells being dug. What do they see from the United States? Us canceling our U.S. aid, letting medicine and food sit in warehouses and ships, rotting, burning it, destroying it, while the people that had been relying on the United States to save their kid from malaria, to give them some sort of inoculation, to give them some sort of emergency food and shelter, all those suffering people worldwide who used to see a big crate with a U.S. flag on it and know that that country was supplying the food, the medicine to help save their kids. And now they know that that country turned their back, had the means to save their kids, had the means to feed and inoculate them, to shelter them, and stopped on purpose to send a message of America first. Which it'd be one thing if we turned away from the rest of the world, giving them health care and food, because we decided we'd rather take care of our own people, give them health care and food, but we're not doing that either. We're cutting back on the health care of Americans who are set to see after the beginning of this year their Obamacare premiums double, triple, maybe even quadruple. As far as feeding, no, we're cutting back on the SNAP benefits too, and we're cutting back what they can get with those SNAP benefits. You know about this, right? They're setting this up for new rules coming over the first of the year that SNAP can't be used to buy sodas and candies. They're going to have all this, food discrimination that they're going to put on here. And I understand how people think about this. Well, if you're not going to be working for money to make food, and we're going to have to feed your kids because you're some poor, degenerate layabout. The type of person who works a full-time job, maybe 2 full-time jobs, maybe 3 part-time jobs, but none of those jobs pay enough money to still be able to afford to feed your kids. Those kind of lazy layabouts, Well, if we're going to pay you, we're not going to have you blowing your money on lobsters and candy bars and 2-liter sodas. Well, all right. So now everybody's just going to have to buy beans and rice, right? You're going to make them all live on beans and rice and that kind of stuff. Don't you think poor people want to eat well? That poor people would like to eat nutritious food? Do you know how expensive it is? Do you have any idea how expensive it is to try to eat well? I do. Yeah, I got word from my doctor that my cholesterol was too high, and if I didn't want to go on any sort of medications, I had to change my diet. And he said, well, you got to go on a Mediterranean diet. Okay, so your Mediterranean, heart-healthy diet, buy lots of, salmon. Buy heart-healthy fish like salmon. Oh, yeah. I'll just go out and get me one of them fillets of salmon. It's $15. that serves maybe 2-3 meals. Okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. And this idea that poor people shouldn't be able to buy cookies or candy or anything like that. Okay. So poor people should just suffer. There should never be any joy in their life. There shouldn't be a time like, oh, I don't know, Christmas, where poor people might have kids that have stockings hung with care. Maybe it'd be nice for the kid to wake up on Christmas and have a chocolate Santa in there. Nope, sorry. You're poor. You need to suffer. Put a can of refried beans in that stocking. And the other maddening thing about these people that want to restrict what people get on Snap that blows my mind. All right, so you're not allowed on Snap then to buy the Keebler Elf box of cookies, right? But you are allowed on Snap to go buy flour and sugar and eggs and milk and baking soda and chocolate chips, et cetera, et cetera. You're allowed to buy all the ingredients to make cookies. So you could buy all the ingredients, which if you had to buy all the ingredients would cost more altogether than just buying the little Keebler box of cookies. But okay, instead of spending $2.50 or $3.50 of the Snap funds on the box of cookies, you're going to spend $10 on the ingredients to make the cookies. Now, you'll still have those ingredients later to be able to make more cookies. It will, in the long term, be a smarter buy, sure. But now you've got all the ingredients to make the cookies. Now you need the time to make the cookies. You, the single mom who's working the shift at Walmart and the shift at McDonald's and picking up time doing some door dashing, you're supposed to now take some time at home to whip up all those ingredients and make the cookies for your kids. So, yeah, it's not that the Snaps aren't allowed to have cookies. It's just you got to put in the effort. Boy, I hate the way people think of poor people, having been a poor person all my life, having grown up as a kid on those SNAP benefits, knowing what that feels like. Because when you're a poor kid, you know you're a poor kid. You know when all the other kids are wearing the brand new puffy jackets, the down Colorado puffy jackets, and you're going to school in the Goodwill used coat. You know you're poor. You know you're poor when all the other kids are at school lunch and they've got like they're bringing in stuff like those Capri Suns in the boxes and stuff. You know, you might have some Kool-Aid. You know you're poor. So it just disgusts me whenever I see these people that think poor people are just lazy, shiftless, layabout, don't deserve it, when in fact, all the poor people I know are working hard, and deserve a little better treatment from the rest of us. But before we go on, I other things in this Christmas message from Trump that I got to get to. This men and women's sports and transgender for everyone. It's like he's got two different attack lines that are both basically the same attack. Like he's got to attack trans people twice. Trans people in sports and transgender for everyone, which I missed the memo about transgender for everyone. I didn't know we were all going to be assigned our own transgender person. First of all, I didn't know there were that many transgender people to assign. I missed mine. Once again, just going after the most marginalized people. How tough it must be to be transgender. Like, do these people not think transgender people exist? I mean, that's got to be the first step, right? Do transgender people exist? I used to have this discussion when it was the gay marriage amendments that were going around and all the anti-gay politics of the early 2000s. And I used to ask people, do gay virgins exist? It's like, what? Yeah, do gay virgins exist? Let's say there's an 18-year-old man. He's an adult. He just turned adult. He's 18. He's a virgin. And in his mind, he has the urge to want to have sex with another man. Is he gay? Can a person be gay who's never had sex? Now, it sounds like a dumb question, but forcing a homophobe to have to answer that question can unearth a very interesting conversation. Because what you're getting at in that discussion is the fact that they don't really believe gay people exist. They believe gay is like an aberration, like everyone is naturally straight and then there's something wrong with you because you're not. In their mind, gay is the act of having sex with a person of the same sex. That gay is something you do. That's what you hear it in their, love the sinner, hate the sin discussion, right? You hear that in their, in the pious ones among them that say they're ex-gay. They overcame their urges. They learned how to deal with their urges. Like it's a parasite, an infection, a disability they have to overcome. So they don't believe in gay virgins. They believe that you're a straight person who's confused. So I use that same line of reasoning when talking about transgender people to them. They don't believe that transgender people actually exist. They believe that a man who thinks he's a woman just has a mental disorder that needs to be cured. And I want to know, when in history has this ever been cured? There are people that fight it, but has it ever been cured? My thoughts on this are that if someone feels that they are something and accommodating that doesn't harm anyone else, what's the problem? I've got people all around me in this world who really sincerely believe that there is an intelligent, organizing force that created the universe, that there is this sentient being outside of the universe and all its physics. There's a sentient being of infinite intelligence and unlimited power. And this infinite, invisible, unproven, omnipotent, creative force speaks to them on a regular basis, and they commune with it, and it has a plan for them and everything in the world that is ever going to happen. And long ago, this sentient creative force that made all of the pulsars and black holes and galactic superclusters and space-time itself, this galactic force communicated with a whole bunch of people in the Bronze Age and told them all the rules for how we should have to live our lives. And based on that book, containing a whole series of different books written by different people who were all in communications with this omnipotent, extra-universal, supernatural, hyper-intelligent being, make all of their political and social decisions based on the book that he dictated to these Bronze Age shepherds. And they feel very strongly about this. And we've made all sorts of laws and rules to protect their ability to think this and to act on these feelings and beliefs. And I think it's absolute lunacy. It's madness. And yet, the vast majority of the human beings I share this planet with sincerely believe this shit. So if I can put up with this, if I can get along with all y'all dealing with this infinite super creative force for which there is zero scientific proof, then y'all can get along with transgender people for whom there are volumes and volumes of scientific proof and research showing that they are who they say they are. They feel what they really feel. That there is nothing wrong with them. There's nothing to cure about them. The only thing wrong with them is trying to cure them. If we can accommodate the Catholics wearing the little gray ash cross on their head, if we can accommodate the Jews taking off so many holidays, if we can accommodate the Sikhs wearing beards and turbans, then we can accommodate the transgender woman who wants to wear a skirt and lipstick. It's not that hard, people. Live and let live. Treat people as you'd want to be treated. Somebody said that. I can't remember who off the top of my head. But to conclude the show today, I couldn't let this pass, and I'm going to give another trigger warning on this. You might want to stop the podcast if you can't handle real sensitive details about the death of infants. These are my trigger warnings. If I'm going to talk about dead babies, I'm going to warn you about it. It's this document that comes out of the Epstein files that was just released. And it's from the online tips section to the Federal Bureau of Investigations. This is dated August 3rd, 2020. Case ID 50 Delta-New York-3027571. And this was received August 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's the details. It's coming from an address, an IP address that's associated with Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it's pointing out this is being submitted by an alleged victim who had given an alternate name as well, an AKA name. And it's all redacted. And this time they actually redacted it correctly, so you can't do the copy-paste trick on it. Anyway, this person, assumed female, writes, I previously provided a tip about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, under an alias I have for myself, blank. All the other details of the previous tip match all the information given in today's tip, except I'm giving my real name. A detective from the NYPD FBI Sex Trafficking Task Force called me a couple weeks ago from a 212 area code number. I talked to him for about 20 to 30 minutes about me being sex trafficked by my uncle and Jeffrey Epstein in 1984, while I was 13 and pregnant. I told him some other important information about other high-profile individuals involved in my sex trafficking, and the murder and disposal of my newborn daughter because I gave birth to her while in the middle of this sex trafficking ordeal. Let me pause for a second. 13-year-old girl being sex trafficked in 1984 by her uncle. Uncle selling his 13-year-old niece into sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein, and she's pregnant. The complaint continues. I cannot remember the detective's name, nor do I have a number where I can contact him. I would like to have his name and contact information, and I would also like to know if there will be any further follow-up. So then there's a series of what the fields are on the form. And so the fields, violation questions, what was the exact crime? Child sex trafficking and infanticide. When did the crime incident occur? May through September of 1984. Where did the crime incident occur? Mostly from a yacht in Lake Michigan, originating from Mona Lake, Michigan. The complainant's information, that's the girl who's complaining, that's all redacted, except for the fact that it's coming from Los Lunas, New Mexico. Then the subjects that she names in the complaint are Jeffrey Epstein, deceased, and she writes, I am just wanting to reconnect with the original detective that called me, and I offered information about this. How was the contact known? He was orchestrating a deal along with my uncle where different men and a few women and girls would come to a variety of boats and yachts and pay money to force me to do blank with them when I was 13 and pregnant. So, we're not talking just about child sex trafficking here, people paying money to have sex with teenage girls, but to do so when they're visibly pregnant, when we know the girl is pregnant, it's a whole nother level of fucked up, isn't it? Witness information. Now we get to the good part. Witness information. Donald Trump, age 70. Again, just trying to find out the NYPD detective on the FBI sex trafficking task force that called me a couple weeks ago and spoke to me about some of these issues. How is this contact known? Trump. He participated regularly in paying money to force me to blank with him, and he was present when my uncle murdered my newborn child and disposed of the body in Lake Michigan. So, people have been wondering, gosh, what could be in the Epstein files that's so terrible? Why would Trump be going to such great lengths to do this cover-up? I mean, it's already known that he's a sex pest, right? What was the excuse the Trump administration always gave on these things? Oh, the country already decided on that. They heard the Access Hollywood grab him by the pussy tape. They've known that he was a billionaire playboy in the 90s. Oh, yeah, sure, he looked in on the Miss Teen USA pageant and was sneaking in the backstage to see the girls in various states of undress. And yeah, he multiple times in public acknowledged his lust for his daughter, Ivanka. Yeah, and there's the tape where there's the 10-year-old girl on the escalator, and he says, yeah, I'll be dating her in 8 or 9 years. Yeah, there's that. And then there's when, Tiffany Trump was born and he was wondering whether or not she'd inherit the breasts and the legs of Marla Maples, his second wife. Yeah, there's that. And then there's his cheating on his third wife with the Playboy model, then cheating on the Playboy model with the porn star. Yeah, there's that. And yeah, there's the raping of E. Jean Carroll and being adjudicated of that. And then twice defaming her, lying about the fact that he did rape her. There's that. And then there's all the dozens and dozens of women who have credibly accused him of sexual assault. Then there's the withdrawn complaint from Katie Johnson, the 13-year-old girl who alleged that he had assaulted her and smacked her around because she wasn't good enough at oral sex. But yeah, the American people already decided on all that. We already decided on all that. And then what did I say? Was it yesterday's podcast? I can't even remember when I said this, but how Donald Trump's base could forgive 16 or 17. They can look at 16, 17-year-old teenage girl bodies that are developed and think, yeah, of course a man would lust after that. And, they're cool with child marriage. And I mentioned in that rant that, yeah, they can handle 16 or 17, but they can't go down to 13. Well, here it is. Here's 13. Here's a 13-year-old girl alleging Donald Trump was present numerous times paying to do blank with him while she was pregnant and was present at the murder and disposal, I suppose throwing overboard, of the body of her newborn infant. They force her to give birth on the yacht and then throw the baby overboard. That's the kind of shit that Donald Trump's base can't wave away. This is the pro-life crowd we're talking about here, the pro-baby crowd. And we have allegations of Donald Trump witnessing an infanticide to do away with, who knows, maybe that pregnancy was his. We don't know. But this stuff's going to come out. More and more and more is going to come out, and eventually Donald Trump's going to die. Let's hope sooner rather than later, for the benefit of humanity. But Donald Trump's going to die, and a whole bunch of non-disclosure agreements are going to suddenly be null and void. And a whole bunch of people who are feeling under threat that Donald Trump would exact his retribution on them if they spoke out are going to be free to speak out. And we're going to have some Tony Soprano level shit coming out, because if there's anything that's true, it's that Donald Trump is a mob boss. And we should expect some Tony Soprano level shit to finally come out. And when it does, I'm going to remember every single one of you motherfuckers that ever voted for him. Every single one of you who ever wore a MAGA hat or put a MAGA bumper sticker on your car, because you're going to try to erase that. You're going to try to throw that stuff away. You're going to have a revelation. Oh my gosh, he pulled the wool over my eyes. I just wanted America first. I just wanted to make America great again. I didn't know that he was murdering infants on Lake Michigan. I didn't know that he was raping teenage girls on the regular. Pregnant teenage girls. They're going to try to distance themselves. They're going to run like cockroaches in the light. And it's up to you and me and all of us out here to go full Lieutenant Aldo Rain from Inglourious Bastards. Metaphorically speaking, I'm not saying you should take a Bowie knife and carve swastikas into their heads. But we should never let them live down the fact that they supported the worst human being to ever exist. Okay, maybe not the worst human being to ever exist, but certainly the worst human being ever produced by the United States of America. Let's put it that level. I'm never going to let him forget. The Radical Russ Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons share-alike licensing. News, music, video clips, and social media posts are reported under fair use copyright laws for commentary and analysis. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herbal Nation, and interstitial music is by Russ Boom Boom Belville. You can contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Call my message line at 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And you can reach me on social media on Blue Sky as radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating to Radical Russ on Venmo, Rad Russ on Cash App, or via PayPal on my website at radicalruss.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care of each other.